loss in the game and a couple of losses on the roster for the foreseeable future. It was certainly not a good weekend for Inter Miami. Hello everyone and welcome back to the latest edition of Miami Total Football Radio. I am your co-host Franco Panizo and I'm taking over hosting duties from Eric Krakauer, whose Ironman run of consecutive appearances on the pod has come to an end. He'll be back next week, but I'm joined by none other than our resident Englishman and fellow Inter Miami beat writer, Steve Brenner. Steve, how are you doing?
I'm good, Franco. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm going to start using mate a lot more now that you're on the show. I hope that's allowed. I hope that's okay. Just comes out of me when I start talking to people from England a lot more often. So hope that's fine. Hope that doesn't rub you the wrong way.
No problem, amigo.
Okay. Well, we're going to jump into everything that happened. Obviously, this weekend was an eventful couple of days for Inter Miami. But just as a reminder to everyone out there, you can follow us on all our social media channels at Miami Total Futbol on YouTube and Facebook, at Miami_Total_Futbol on Instagram, and at MIA Total Futbol on Twitter. Every follow that we get helps us to continue to bring you all the Inter Miami content on a regular basis, so please give us a follow on there if you don't already, and leave a review on iTunes if you've not already done so. But enough of that, there's football to talk about, so let's get to it. Alright, Steve, so we saw Inter Miami suffer its 10th defeat of the season on Saturday night, losing 3-2 to New York City FC. We were both in attendance. We both saw the match as it unraveled, especially that eventful first half. We can touch on that in a few minutes. First, let's just talk about the big news that came out of this week, and there were two very big talking points in terms of player personnel. The first one being Rodolfo Pizarro. Diego Alonso confirmed on Saturday night after the game. He's off with the Mexican national team. Pizarro's gone. He's actually already in camp with the Mexican national team. He traveled last night or today, and he's taking part in his first training session. He's going to miss a couple of weeks as he gets ready to take part in those two friendlies, but he's going to miss even more than that, probably for Inter Miami. Diego Alonso said 4 to 5 matches because he's subject to quarantine based on MLS rules. Steve, everyone's asking, how do you replace him, and how big of a loss is this? Let's start with that second question. How big of a loss is not having the star attacking midfielder on the books in the roster for the next 4 to 5 matches for Inter Miami?
I mean, yeah, of course, it's a loss, and I think that's why Diego Alonso was very sort of forthright in his comments to us on Thursday. I think was saying, we're going to fight, we're helping MLS are going to fight with FIFA. They were hoping that just because it was a friendly rather than than a World Cup qualifier, there could have been a bit of leniency. But you've got to also remember that, unfortunately, because of COVID and where we are right now, in a normal world, if that's the right phrase, he would have played 2 games and he would have come back and wouldn't have missed the 3 or 4 other games because he wouldn't have to be into quarantine. So that element of it obviously has to be taken into consideration. But yeah, of course, it's a big miss. He hasn't been playing well. I know we're going to touch on it later. He didn't really contribute a great deal on Saturday night, but in a squad that's got a dearth of sort of attacking or quality players, to lose arguably your most creative player is a huge blow, and for it to be so many games is even worse, really. So it's just come at a very, very, very bad time, and I think that shows you why they were so determined for MLS to try and force FIFA's hand, which unfortunately for Diego Alonso and Rodolfo Pizarro didn't happen.
Yeah, and Diego Alonso said after the match, I asked him about the update, and Alonso says, and I didn't ask him, if he was agreed with it or not, but he said just directly on his own, he's like, if you ask me how I feel about it, he said, I'm not in agreement with it. That they're in a crucial juncture. Inter Miami is in their season, but you also have to see it from Mexico's standpoint and Mexico's national team standpoint, which, Tata Martino is trying to build a team that is going to start World Cup qualifying next year. So he needs to have some time with the players as well to try to build the squad he wants to build for what's to come for that team. So obviously it's not an ideal situation, but nothing this year has been ideal, especially when it comes to Inter Miami. I think it is a significant loss. Obviously, Pizarro hasn't necessarily been the best player game in and game out for Inter Miami this year, but not having him and not having his quality takes a big piece out of Inter Miami's attacking edge. It'll obviously give a player an opportunity to stand out. Someone will have to fill not necessarily his shoes or his exact tactical role, but someone's going to have to fill that place in the lineup and help try to give the attack something. So who do you think that'll be? How does Inter Miami go about replacing it? Obviously, Matias Pellegrini did it a couple of weeks ago in that game against the New York Red Bulls, I believe. So is that who you think Diego Alonso ends up going with? Do you think he just does different formations and different looks depending on who the opponent is? What do you think he should do, and what would you do if you were Diego Alonso?
I don't know. I mean, Pellegrini's sort of come in and again, he's like the sort of third DP. I mean, has he really shown, he's a young guy, but has he really shown sort of any potential or any sort of quality to think, yeah, this is a guy that deserves to be a DP? He's pretty untried. He's a fresh player, but now's the time for him to step up, isn't it? I think they did look relatively okay with that front three of Pizarro, Higuain, and Lewis Morgan. Up top on Saturday night, they were both sort of dropping back. I think he'll want Pellegrini's to work hard and track back, etc., etc. So that would be the like for like, I guess, unless he wants to maybe just to play with Higuain up top and then just sort of flood the midfield and make sure they don't sort of become more sort of compact and defensive, because obviously, as we're going to touch on later, they've been letting in quite a few goals recently. So maybe it's a time just to mix it up again and just try and work with what they got and maybe a bit more compact in midfield.
I think he's going to go with, depending on the opponent and depending on what he sees in this first match on Wednesday on the road against the New York Red Bulls, I think that will help determine which way he goes with it, or if he continues just to fine-tune things and to do different looks. For me, I think he's going to go with the same look we just saw on Saturday, the 4-3-3. I think you're going to see Breck Shea slot into that left winger spot. I think he'll try that initially. If he goes 4-2-3-1, it'll be Pellegrini like it was against the New York Red Bulls. The last time out, Pellegrini, for those that might not remember, got an assist in that game. He played a nice ball over the top that Juan Agudelo finished. So that's going to give, I'm sure, Alonso some encouragement. But I think at this point he trusts Breck Shea a little bit more. I think Breck Shea will get the nod, and they'll stick in that 4-3-3 formation with Trapp playing as the deep lying midfielder. But again, if they go 4-2-3-1, Pellegrini will be the number 10 replacement. They'll fill in centrally. He's essentially the only player that can do that job at this point. They traded Lee Win a few weeks ago, so they don't really have a natural fit there. I guess Jay Chapman could be an option, but for me, it's going to be Breck Shea, because Steve, you know this. You've been covering the team all season. Diego Alonso is very big on width and very big on crosses, and if they're going to have someone out there out wide, I think Breck Shea is the guy. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's going to be Pellegrini's time to shine?
I mean, one thing that won't give him encouragement was the 4-1 result against the Red Bulls 2 weeks ago. That's one thing. But yeah, no, look, when Breck Shea comes on, he's energetic, he's workmanlike. He just gets the job done. I did think in that Red Bulls game, at home, that Ben Mines, who scored the third for Red Bulls, I thought he was the best player on the park basically that night. Ran midfield, just dynamic player, got up and down a lot. And they really put it to them all over the pitch, did the Red Bulls, and I expect probably more of the same. So what does he do? Does he go light for light? Does he try and attack them, or does he try and be a bit more compact? Maybe try and hit them on the break. Obviously Higuain didn't play that night, but I just think maybe, especially away from home, I think with Breck Shea's experience, I tend to lean to maybe put him in and just keep it a bit more solid. But I'd love Pellegrini to come off and show why he was made the club's first DP and all that promise, and he's on decent money and everything like that. But he can't. Diego Alonso can't really afford to sort of lose this game. So it's got to be a bit of a safety first against an opponent that just really sort of dealt with Inter Miami pretty easily the other night.
Speaking of the opponent, it was going to be the return of Luis Robles to Red Bull Arena for the first time since he left the New York Red Bulls to sign with Inter Miami. He had already played them, obviously, a couple of weeks ago, but this would have been his first game back in his former home stadium. However, he is most likely going to be out for the match. He suffered a fracture on his left arm in the dying minutes of Saturday night's match. If he's out, John McCarthy, you figure, will be the guy that fills in for him. Again, Steve, how big of a loss is losing Luis Robles?
I mean, a big loss. I was actually sat in the stand for a little bit on Saturday night, so you could hear all the players, and Robles very, very vocal, organising the back four. We know what a great talker he is with the media, but he was a good communicator with the defence. And look, he's an experienced older head. It was only 36, but experienced older head, been there, done it. And his influence in the locker room is huge. And again, losing someone like that for an extended amount of time is another bitter blow. Has Robles really been at fault all season? No, probably not. And I'm sure McCarthy will come in and he'll be fine. It's the players in front of him, those front four, the back four, which have been the problem. So it's a blow, but you'd expect McCarthy to come in and hopefully he will do okay.
So I got to see some of McCarthy when he had his streak of starts at Philadelphia Union, and he's capable of making saves, but he's also capable of making very simple mistakes. So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, this is a few years ago now, so it's going to be interesting to see how he does. This is, again, an opportunity for a younger player to come in and shine and deliver. And maybe, he's matured as he's in his game and as he's developed. So this could be a perfect opportunity for him to showcase that he is a very capable number two, potentially even a starter in this league, especially with the amount of teams that are coming in. And I'm sure there will be expansion teams that are going to enter the league in the next year or two that will keep an eye out, because there's expansion drafts and you can always pick out a player. You can't protect everyone when you're in the expansion draft. So number two goalkeepers are always a good commodity to look for. So an excellent opportunity for him to step up. I agree with you that Robles is a significant loss in terms of his abilities. I don't think he's been at his best over the course of the season. I think he's had a little bit of a drop off in his level from where he was with the New York Red Bulls over the last few years. That's just my personal opinion. I think there's been some goals he could have saved that he's kind of let in a little bit too easily this year. But he's been good. He has made great saves. He made 2 great saves against New York City FC on Saturday night. And like you said, the organization that he brings to that backline, helping to organize that defense, is going to be missed. And that's something I don't think John McCarthy's going to be able to give you. He hasn't gotten to that point in his career, or that stage in his career. So Robles is a significant loss. There's no word yet. We haven't heard officially that he's out for Wednesday, nor that he will be out for an extended period of time. But given that he's a goalkeeper and he has a fracture in his left arm, it's pretty safe to imagine that he won't be playing anytime in the short term for Inter Miami. I actually have done some talking to people within the team that work for the team, and Robles is in a lot of pain. That's what I was told, and I heard he's in a lot of pain. So does not seem very good or very optimistic for that for a quick return for him. And Steve, before we switch the page and talk and look back to the game on Saturday and look ahead to what's to come on Wednesday, I wanted to ask you what you thought about the challenge that led to Robles' injury, because I remember our I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I remember our discussion during the game, and I think you said you weren't too sure what something different Gary Mackay-Steven could have done on the play. Now you've probably looked at it a few more times or a couple more times. What did you think of the challenge that obviously injures Luis Robles?
I think my opinion was correct and the same than it is now, really. I don't think you always get, don't you, the goalkeeper, and whenever there's a challenge of the goalkeeper, the stock response is just to have a go at the person that challenged you, whether it's throat high or it's no problem at all. I mean, he had to go for the ball. I don't think there was anything malicious in it. It was just coming together. Maybe the pitch was a little bit greasy. So I don't think it was just one of those. It was just one of those things. He had to go for the ball. It was a 50-50, and obviously, unfortunately for Luis, he came off the worst. But I think he had to go for it. There was just nothing else he could have done. Unfortunately, it's a contact sport. You've got to get stuck in, and he did. But unfortunately, someone else came off worse.
I agree with you that obviously there was torrential downpour for a few minutes in that game towards the end in the latter minutes of that match. So the field maybe was a little slippery, and that maybe leads to that. I can agree with that point, but I can't agree. I still don't agree that was a good challenge, and I don't think that it was malicious. I agree with you that I don't think Mackay-Steven went in there with the intent to hurt Luis Robles. but on a 50-50, sometimes it's not a 50-50. Sometimes it's a 70-30, and you know you're not going to get there, and you got to pull out of the challenge. And that's why I think Robles reacts as strongly as he does. And I know you've covered Luis Robles over the years, and I've covered him essentially from the minute he arrived in MLS. I've never seen him react that way towards an opposing player. I've never seen him so angry. He stood over Gary Mackay-Steven and screamed at him. Like, that's not Luis Robles. That's not who we've seen Luis Robles be. So for me, I'm sure Luis Robles felt there was also a bit unnecessary for Gary Mackay-Steven to go into that tackle, to make that challenge, and obviously injure him. And now Luis Robles is out.
No, yeah. One thing I will say though is it did sort of, that challenge did actually typify the way that NYCFC went about the game. They really got stuck in. The fullbacks were constantly sniping. It got pretty tetchy towards the end. Could have been a couple of red cards. Higuain was moaning at the referee. They put it right up into Miami the other night. I was pretty impressed with them. They really put themselves about and really got stuck in. And I don't think Miami really sort of coped with that and really gave them anything back at all. It was interesting, and they in the end, they deserve that win.
Yep. Well, we're talking about the game already, so let's take a quick break and then we'll dive all into it to dissect what happened to Inter Miami in that 3-2 defeat. All right, Steve, well, as we've said and as we know, Inter Miami suffered its 10th defeat, a 3-2 loss at home on Saturday night in a chippy affair, as you mentioned. It was an eventful first half. Second half was a little less open, a little less eventful. Plenty of fouls, not a whole lot of chances for either side, although there were a couple. But the action got started early. Alexandre Mitrita scores 4 minutes in before Lewis Morgan starts his brace and his 2-goal performance in the 27th minute with a strong finish to the left post. The lead didn't last very long. New York City scores again. Antoine Tinnerholm takes advantage of the time and the space he's allowed and picks out the bottom left corner. But Lewis Morgan scores again for Inter Miami. A golazo, a top corner, top shelf finish to the upper 90 on the right side. But yet again, Inter Miami gave up another. They gave up the opportunity to take another lead. Alexandre Mitrita scores on a quick counter after an Inter Miami corner kick in the 43rd minute. That's a mouthful, but it was an eventful first half. What did you make of that opening 45 minutes for Inter Miami? What did they do well, and what did they not do so well?
Well, I mean, they can, obviously conceded early, which wasn't great. Mitrita was brilliant, best player on the pitch, small little guy, but just pulling the strings. Exactly what you would want, Pizarro to do in that role, and he just didn't do it. Went anonymous again. Mitrita was great, scored one, and like I say, Lewis Morgan equalised, and then they let in another goal. Tinnerholm as well, who was excellent, who was just getting up and down, really getting in people's faces. And just when you thought they'd got back in it, they then conceded again. They can't seem to, once they get back into games, because they did look like Inter Miami did look like scoring. Higuain nearly scored. They were creating sort of good chances, but they were just letting themselves down yet again. Off the back of what we saw against the Red Bulls at home. It was just sort of more of the same, and it was just doubly frustrating. They just couldn't just keep, shut up shop, and even, go into the half at 2-2, having fought back twice. I thought that would have really helped them. And second half, unfortunately, City just sort of closed up shop, and Inter were unable to break them down. So, I think Mitrita was the difference between the two sides, and he put in the kind of performance that we needed from Pizarro and didn't get it.
Like, for me, the defense is a concern, right? And I know Diego Alonso after the match said he didn't think the defense played poorly, and he chalked up the mistakes to just concentration or lack of focus and individual errors. But to me, that's still part of the art of defending. So I mean, I don't know where you stand, and I want to hear your take in a second. But on the first goal, you see AJ De La Garza doesn't get back into position after the ball is cleared, or as Inter Miami tries to clear the ball, and that leaves that open bit of space for Mitrita to run into. Victor Ulloa tries to recognize that, he does recognize that, but he can't get over in position in time. Lewis Morgan maybe could have done a little bit better, maybe could have tucked in a little more centrally. I think he even said that after the match to help maybe not allow Mitrita that free run into the box. But that's just number one. That's mistake number one. And then on the second goal, just no one stepped up. No one stepped up on Anton Tinnerholm. They just let him carry the ball forward freely. I know the ball was won at midfield, and it was a hit on the counter essentially, but someone had to step up there. And if you go back and watch the play, Inter Miami is a team that interchanges positions defensively. There's a lot of cover in terms of if someone has gotten caught out of position, someone fills in for them. So on that play, Will Trapp goes from being the 6 in the inverted triangle in the midfield to a center back spot, because Gonzalez Pires had filled in at left back for Ben Sweat, who got caught up far up the field on the play. But then nobody stepped up. Will Trapp didn't step up. No one had the alertness or the reading of the game that, hey, we have to step up. Don't let Anton Tinnerholm have essentially a free shot or a free look rather easily from outside the box, which again he did very well with, placed it well. Some players might go for power there and sky it over the crossbar, but he went for precision and he picked out the bottom corner perfectly. Nothing Luis Robles could do about that. And then on the third goal, it's very similar. And this one I put on Diego Alonso as much as any one player, because this is a goal that we saw at MLS is back. This is a goal that we saw Inter Miami give up at MLS is back against the Philadelphia Union in the second match of that tournament, where Inter Miami has an attacking set piece and it quickly comes back the other way and the opposing team scores on it. This time Alexandre Mitrita gets the ball and he races forward. Again, no one steps to press him. AJ De La Garza is trying to chase from behind, never gets there, and Ben Sweat just retreats and retreats and retreats, and he never makes an attempt to try to take the ball from Mitrita, and he just allows him to penetrate into the final third. Mitrita takes a shot, gets off a wicked deflection off of Sweat and goes in. So there's plenty of blame on that goal from the player perspective, but that's also on Diego Alonso. You have to position your team and your defensive pieces, whether it's 2, 3, 4, that are not up in the box to head the ball or try to win the set piece, to be able to put out a fire. And I'm going to emphasize this point. I agree with him that there were individual errors, because even AJ De La Garza, on that play, he steps forward on the initial ball. When New York City FC starts to clear it, he steps forward to try to challenge for the ball, and then it's played over his head. But that one step forward that he took is the one step that did not allow him to catch up to Mitrita as he tried to chase him shortly thereafter. So there were individual errors. It's not just on AJ De La Garza. It's not just on Ben Sweat. It's not just on Diego Alonso. But it's frustrating at this point in the season if you're the team, because not only have you seen this goal, but it's late in the year. These type of things should not be happening at this juncture in the season. But again, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Alonso's comments, if you thought the team had a good defensive performance.
Well, I think if Roman Torres was playing, none of this would have happened anyway. So, But,
I mean, hey, there's something to be said about that.
Well,
actually,
yeah, I mean, again,
I know you say that in jest. But.
Yeah, well, it comes back to what we were talking about last week, doesn't it? About just having the experience, having like an experienced head. But Gonzalez Pires, Figal, they're not novices. They're not rookies, are they? These guys have been around a while. Will Trapp has been around. It was interesting. Afterwards, Matuidi said that we need to concentrate better, and then Lewis Morgan agreed with that, as well as sort of picking himself up to say that I didn't track back really. But I guess the whole thing is that Diego Alonso in MLS, you can't just throw millions of dollars at something. You've got to deal with what you've got, and he's coaching what he has. And I just think at the moment defensively they're just a little, leave a lot to be desired really. They're just not a cohesive unit. I just think it's confidence. I just think maybe a lack of confidence. Just they don't give themselves enough time just to be able to have parity in the game. There always seems to be sort of chasing it, and then as the game gets stretched, then they get torn apart more. So he has to deal with what he has, and I don't think he has a superstar defender. certainly not at centre half that can really help him. So, does he push trap back, or does he get Matuidi maybe to sort of shield the back four a bit more? I don't know. It's difficult, and the Red Bulls, having won so handsomely, the other night, they're going to do exactly the same and really go for it and put that back line under pressure from the start. So you'd hope that he'd be drilling into them this week. He'd been looking at those goals, as you pointed out. The way that they sort of let them in, and the lack of concentration, and not picking up the marker, and just slow. They just seemed too slow to respond to things. I think it was the second goal, wasn't it, when he just ran through. No one seemed to challenge him. It was like you're in stoppage time, not in the middle of the first half. So there's plenty to work on. It was disappointing the other night because we came away after the Red Bulls game thinking they have to improve on this, the next game, and we got there and it's like they put an even worse performance, really, considering everything that went on. So disappointing. So he's going to be. I'm sure he would have been working them very hard this week to try and sort it out. But there's no magic wand, is there? You can't just bring in. You can't bring someone in that's just going to sort it out straight away.
So you agree with me and disagree with Diego Alonso then that they didn't have a good defensive performance? Because he said they thought, I think his point was, and everyone sees the game differently, right? Like, you necessarily don't like a certain player that I like or that Diego Alonso might like. Everybody has their different opinions on the beautiful game, which is why it's such a fascinating sport. So you agree that the team did not have a good defensive performance. Is that safe to say?
Did they not lose 3-2?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, having let up a goal in right at the start, and then also crucially just before half time. No, I don't know. I don't think they did. Okay, fair enough. They didn't let the second half was 0-0. Okay, great. But what about the first 45 when they were all over the place, really? So I would agree to disagree with Diego on that one.
Yeah, and that's and I think he's starting to differentiate that. He said when he was responding and talking about how he thought that collectively the team played well defensively, he said he interrupted himself and said, this is just my for me, this is just my point of view. So, and I get what he's saying to a point, that these breakdowns come off of individual errors, but again, to me, that's part of defending. That is part of the art of playing defense. You can't have these breakdowns. You can't have these lapses in concentration. Sure, did the team get broken, or did New York City FC break open Inter Miami's defense through intricate passing or through balls in behind? No. So I get what he's saying or where he's maybe trying to come from, but I don't agree, again, that this was a good defensive performance or that his defense was not to blame, because these lapses, that you have to take those out of the game in order to be able to try to keep a 0 at the back and try to take the 3 points, which Inter Miami badly needs. They remain in 13th place in the Eastern Conference. They're now 6 points back of the playoff spot instead of 4, so still manageable, but some work to be done. Now we'll switch gears and look towards Wednesday's game against the other New York team, the New York Red Bulls. Like you said, they came into South Florida a few weeks ago and beat Miami 4-1. Now, I think that score was a bit misleading, and I know you've touched on it a couple of times, but I think that score was a bit misleading. It was 2-1 up until late, and then Inter Miami gives up 2 goals late in the dying minutes as they're frantically pushing to try to find an equalizer. In this match that we'll see on Wednesday, we're not sure yet of the statuses of Juan Agudelo and Andres Reyes, who both missed this weekend's match because of injuries. Inter Miami has got to hope and pray, and Inter Miami fans need to hope and pray that Andres Reyes is ready and available, because this was something that I think was a bit overlooked on Saturday. Leandro Gonzalez Pires is unavailable for Wednesday's match due to yellow card accumulation. He picked up his 5th yellow card of the season against New York City FC. That rules him out against the New York Red Bulls. That's a big loss for them at the back, because I think, I know you said you don't think they have a stout center back. I think he is a stout center back. I think he's been the most consistent and the best player that they've had since the resumption of the MLS season. He was one of the best center backs in his time in MLS before he left to Mexico when he was with Atlanta United. So he's a massive loss. So without him,
yeah.
Without him, what do you do? Without him, if Andres Reyes is not healthy, what do you do? Like, Steve, what do you do if you're Diego Alonso right now? That's got to be a massive headache he has right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I wasn't doubting Perez's qualities as a player. I just think collectively the defense as a whole just don't operate well as a unit. You know, like you say, he's an experienced sort of MLS campaigner. You know, a lot of experience. And yeah, look, I mean, again, huge blow because, as you know, you love Reyes, and so does he. So they're both out. So you know, it's yet more chopping and changing, and you know, it's disappointing. It's disappointing for him because this is a key game, and he's really struggling for numbers now. But again,
which goes to your point,
which
goes to your point about Torres. You know, if they, I know, and they also, you know, Diego Alonso said that they moved him in part because they were looking out for his best interest and he wanted more time and more minutes. But now they've left themselves thin, and now that's biting them essentially in the rear end because, look, like, if Reyes isn't able to go, you essentially have only Figal as your only natural center back in this group. Who else can play there? Let's say Reyes is out. Let's say he's not able to return from his facial injury, and Gonzalez Pires is out. Who do you play? Do you use Christian Makoun, who's you just loaned to USL? He has a right to recall. He's dressed a few times, presumably as the center back option in case of an emergency. This could be an emergency, so is that who he goes to, or does he go with a different look? Do you put in Ben Sweat centrally and you know, go with Mikey Ambrose out? I mean, there's the options are incredibly vast, or there's so many of them, because this is just like he's gonna have to do so much moving to find a spot if Andres Reyes can't go.
Yeah, I mean, Makoun would be the guy, I guess. You know, when you look at, you know, the sort of kind of fanfare that was brought in, but I mean, he's obviously gone to Fort Lauderdale in the USL for a reason. He clearly didn't think he was happy. Maybe, yeah, Ben Sweat could sort of drop in, maybe, but yeah, it's going to be difficult because, as we've said before, you know, you can't replace, you know, experience. It's tough. It's tough, and I guess I think he may change the shape and try and be more compact with the midfield. I don't think he'll go there and play three up top like that. I just don't think it'll work. Maybe they'll use Higuain as a sort of figurehead up top, and then they'll look to hit on the counter attack, but make sure that, you know, Matuidi and Will Trapp or whatever just try and shield the back four, and maybe, you know, two banks of four just to try and keep them out, and then hopefully if the Higuain can hold it up, and then they can all push forward and try and counter attack.
So you're thinking 4-man back line against the New York Red Bulls?
I think a 10-man back line would be definitely handy, with all of them in goal. Hanging off the goalposts. I'd be worried about him going with three up top like he did on Saturday night. I think he'll try and be a bit more conservative. He's like the arch pragmatist, as everyone thinks that he is. So I think he'll look at it, and also, you know, he'll know that they did a number on them the other, you know, was it 10 days ago? Mm-hmm. And really, you know, again, it was a case of them getting back into Miami, getting back into it, then lost a goal just after half time, and then, you know, towards the end it got a little bit messy. So he's got a lot to think about. Yeah.
So if you go with the 4-man back line, this is, I guess, my last question to you in terms of the lineup for Wednesday. Who do you go with at right back? Obviously, Nicolas Figal will not be there. He'll be at center back given the problems that Inter Miami is having right now in terms of availability. Who do you play at right back? Do you go with AJ De La Garza, who just made his debut and started there against NYCFC? Do you go with the rookie Dylan Nealis, who has been hot and cold, and clearly Diego Alonso wanted to see somebody else there over the weekend because he's not been convinced, he has not been sold by the rookie? Or do you go with a different option, like Alvis Powell, who just, you know, congratulations to the Powell family, they just had a baby over the weekend. So what do you do in terms of that right back spot if you're Diego Alonso on Wednesday?
I think De La Garza did okay the other night. You know, he's pretty dynamic, isn't he? Gets up and down, puts himself around. He's throwing himself into challenges and stuff like that. Mikey Ambrose, is he around? Is he available?
He is available. More of a left back, and, you know, if they do end up putting Ben Sweat in the middle, if Reyes is unavailable, I would imagine he ends up being a prime candidate for the left side. But I guess he could be an outside option for right back. I mean, this is just this is just a difficult one to predict, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Mike Ambrose has got some good experience, and I just think throwing in the sort of younger players, especially against a team that have been going pretty well recently, I just think is a big call. So I'd like to sort of get as much experience in there as possible, and maybe just jig it around, maybe push Ben Sweat up a bit, slip Ambrose in somehow, and then then obviously the Pires sort of replacement. I don't know. That's why Diego Alonso gets paid the big bucks, not me.
You're getting headache already just trying to put that jigsaw puzzle together. For me, I think it'll be if Reyes can't go, I think it'll be De La Garza on the right, Figal in the middle. Oof, this is a tough spot, man. Ben Sweat next to him. Nope, I take that back. Christian McCoon next to him, and Ben Sweat on the left. That's what I think Inter Miami will go with as far as the back line, and obviously John McCarthy most likely in goal in place of Luis Robles. But so my last question, actually, I do have one more question for you. What do you think for a prediction? Do you think Inter Miami can come away with 3 sorely needed points from this match at Red Bull Arena?
I mean, I'd love to say yes. But considering everything that we've just talked about, it's pretty much going to be, especially with the goalkeeper as well. It's just a new dynamic all over the back line, just when they just need a bit of continuity. So I think they'd snap your hand off for a draw right now, but I could unfortunately see another defeat. I'd love to be proved wrong. Absolutely. Look, we all want them to do well. It makes our jobs easier when they're doing well rather than not so. But it's going to be another tough night on a season of a lot of tough nights. A lot of still tough nights to come, I think.
Yeah, in MLS, anything can happen, which is part of the beauty of MLS. There's teams that have almost reserve lineups, and they can come out with victories at sometimes.
Exactly. But
I don't see it. But I don't see it.
It's up to him now, isn't it? This is where he earns his corn. He's got to coach them. He has to coach them and build that shape. Like I say, there's no magic wand. He can't just bring in a $20 million thing just like that. Now he has to coach them and get them through this period. That's his job, and it's exacerbated by all these problems. Right. So people. So we'll see what happens. Well,
to his credit, this is the last thing I'll say on it, or to be fair to him as well. There's not how much coaching can he get done in this condensed season, right? They played Saturday night. You got to imagine they did regeneration work on Sunday, so he gets 1 to 2 training sessions before the game. It's not like he gets a full week's worth of practice to really work on these things. He's got to manage minutes and loads and figure all that out. So it's definitely not a regular campaign. But again, this is what he gets paid for. This is why he was hired as the first head coach in Inter Miami history. So we'll see what he does. We'll see how he manages the situation. I imagine we'll get to speak to him probably tomorrow, Tuesday. And we'll be able to ask him some questions to see if he sheds any light with regards to availability or what he's thinking. But we'll see what happens. We'll take a quick break. We have another segment here, one final segment. Steve, I hope you're ready for this new little segment we're going to do as a one-off. All right, guys. Well, in lieu of our regular Q&A that we do to end the show, we're going to do something a little more virtual, I guess, in that sense. I know maybe Steve's not the biggest gamer, but we're going to touch on Inter Miami's FIFA 21 player ratings. I was able to get my hands on the game that drops this Friday over the weekend, and I was able to see the team and the ratings that they gave each player. I know it's a big talking point for gamers out there, soccer gamers out there. I'm personally more of a Pro Evolution Soccer guy, not as much of a FIFA guy, but I know FIFA's the hit, the one that more people play, so I think it's something fun to do, something a little bit different, just so people can know what the ratings are, and they can agree or disagree. That's always a fun point about the rating. So I'll go run down right through the whole roster. Gonzalo Higuain has a rating of 82. Juan Agudelo with a 68. Rodolfo Pizarro, 74. Lewis Morgan, 68. Victor Ulloa, 69. Blaise Matuidi, 83. Nicolas Figal, 70. Andres Reyes, 61. Leandro Gonzalez Pires, 71. Ben Sweat, 62. Luis Robles, 70. Julian Carranza, 68. Will Trapp, 72. Matias Pellegrini, 68. Jay Chapman, 63. Alvis Powell, 67. Brek Shea, 64. John McCarthy, 65. And then you have the end of the roster. Robbie Robinson with a 58, Mikey Ambrose 64, Dylan Nealis with a 50, David Norman Jr. with a 52, Luis Argudo is still on the squad. He has a 65, AJ De La Garza a 67, Christian McCoon 61, Jerome Kiesfeder 65, and finally the last three, Denzel Olisi 58, Drake Callender 54, and George Acosta 57. Steve, and those were a lot of numbers and a lot of names. Did any one of those pop out at you for good or for worse with regards to how they were rated?
Well, I guess, Higuain, 82. His defending is only 31, but I guess that sort of says everything about, his sort of game, really. Defensive work rate, medium. So that was interesting. Your friend Reyes, only 61. Maybe you should give a call to the Electronic Arts or whoever makes it to have a complaint about that. But no, I don't think there's not too much to get that excited about, is there? I guess for anyone that wants to sort of take control of Inter Miami, unless you can just work them hard on a training ground like Diego Alonso and try and actually improve them.
I thought, I think Andres Reyes at 61 is a little harsh, and I'll put in my calls to my friends at EA to see what's up with that. I mean, to be fair, these ratings are with part of the that you download the squads every week on FIFA. There's always updated rosters, and they go off of form based off of recent performances. So this was done prior to the NYCFC game, but after the Philadelphia Union loss. So that goes into account into the player ratings. But I think Andres Reyes, I think that's a little low for him, 61. I think Lewis Morgan could have maybe been a point or two higher at 68. I don't think that's where he's probably should really be at. And then I don't know what they did to Dylan Nealis, man. I don't know why they gave him a 50 overall. Obviously, he's not at the top end of the rating scale, but a 50, that's pretty harsh, man. That's like he's almost in the 40s. I don't think I've ever seen a FIFA player in the 40s. And I played FIFA religiously during my college years, so pretty harsh rating. I don't know if Dylan Nealis has any enemies at EA Sports, but I think that's a tough one.
Yeah, that is tough. I mean, he works hard, doesn't he? Puts his body on the line. There's no need for that. I'm definitely going to complain to EA. But yeah, Matuidi 83. I guess is that representative maybe of his form or maybe his legend and what he's done in the past. But he was okay, wasn't he, the other night? He actually played better the other night. So hopefully now it could be a bit of an upturn. But it's going to be a big game for him on Wednesday. So maybe his ratings will maybe go up or go down.
And Ben Sweat, did I say Luis Robles? If I didn't say Luis Robles is a 70. I might not have said him. I might have passed over him, so I'm going to repeat that anyway. The only other one that I think is really worth noting here could be Ben Sweat. Obviously, again, this is taking form into consideration, and he hasn't had the best of weeks, but he's at a 62. Breck Shea's rated higher than him at 64. Alvis Powell is rated better than both of them at 67. I don't know how Diego Alonso feels about that because, Alvis Powell has only played in 2 matches all season, so not necessarily. I'm not sure he agrees with that. And Robbie Robinson, I think that's the other one that we could maybe talk about a little in depth because he got a 58. So FIFA's clearly not high on the rookies.
Well, they've got to be in there and try and impress them. Robbie Robinson he's had his chances, hasn't he? And in the real world, not in your computer game world, and hasn't really kind of taken them, has he? So a couple of either ways that didn't he go through against the Red Bulls? I remember, and he had that great chance and missed. Yeah. So when they step up, they've got to take the chances. And although Dylan Nealis hasn't done too bad, I think Robbie Robinson, it's been tough for him, isn't it? So let's get the performances on the pitch so those EA ratings can get higher. That is the focus of all these players right now.
For sure. And if you want a full rundown of the game and see some of the intro that Inter Miami has in the match and the jerseys, you can officially see them in FIFA EA Sports game. We have posted them on our YouTube channel at Miami Total Futbol. Put up some content on the game over the past few days. And again, that game drops on Friday. Steve, we've touched on a lot. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this show? It was just me and you this time, huh? No Eric to come in with the comedic relief and obviously his analysis that we also cherish very well. But any final thoughts on the team or on just the pod and just us doing it together here for this first time? Or just anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah, no, I think Eric was here in spirit. His sort of power and influence just sort of fell over all of us. But watching the basketball, certainly on Sunday night, Jimmy Butler was immense for Miami, and he was the star guy, but yet he had Hero and he had Duncan Robinson, the two rookies, really sort of backing him up, and it just made me think that it's a team game. It's pretty simple. You just need your star guys to perform, and then hopefully you get one or two roughs, like we've seen with the Heat, those rookies. And when you put it forward to Inter Miami, you need a guy like Pizarro to start producing, or show why he's a star player, and then he just will drag the other guys with him. And some of those rookies will really stand up and be counted. So that's just the issue for me right now with the team, is that although he's built like a solid base, the star guys just forget Higuain. He's not part of this conversation, but Matuidi is beginning to become part of it because he's been here for a while. But his one guy, his go-to guy, Pizarro, just hasn't really performed, and that's what you need. You need your star guys to lead from the front, and they just haven't had that. And I think that is the reason why they've been struggling, because they just haven't. Unfortunately, Pizarro hasn't been able to produce the kind of form that he's supposed to produce. I actually spoke to someone in Mexico the other day, and they said that he left Mexico under a bit of a cloud. He wasn't really playing that well. I think he was subbed in one of the finals for one of the last games he played for Monterrey. Monterrey went on to win the cup, and he wasn't, he'd been subbed off at half time. He'd been a bit lackluster, and, I don't know, it just hasn't worked out great. So let's hope maybe after this 7-week international odyssey that he's on, that when he comes back, maybe he'll sort of crank into life a bit, because that's what you need. You just need those big guys just to perform, and then everything else sort of will fall in behind it,
That's a long final thought, but Inter Miami's going to hope, like you said, Inter Miami's going to hope that they are in a position to potentially be in the playoff picture at that point. Again, he's going to miss 4 to 5 matches of the final 8 that Inter Miami has to play, so that's definitely a big blow. Steve, the outlook doesn't look too good, doesn't sound too good. I agree with you. I think this season is in jeopardy, and this next week or two will really determine what happens to Inter Miami. The team plays on Wednesday against the New York Red Bulls on the road at Red Bull Arena. We'll see if they can pick themselves up off the mat and get back to winning ways. Reminder to everyone, you can follow us on our social media channels, as well as leave us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts as it's known now. And that's it for this week. We'll talk to you guys again next week. Have a good one, Soccerheads.